What happens when a virgin nun becomes the only person who can save a dying mafia boss? Follow Sister Theresa's journey as she crosses the threshold from her sheltered convent life into the dangerous world of Salvatore Moretti. Will she risk her sacred vows and eternal soul for a man whose hands are stained with blood? Or is there something more divine in their forbidden connection? I never thought my life would change because of one sick man. My name is Sister Theresa, and I work at St. Mary's Hospital in the poor part of the city. Every day I wake up at 5 a.m., pray with the other nuns, then put on my white nurse's apron over my black habit. The hospital smells like bleach and sadness. My shoes make soft squeaking sounds on the shiny floors as I walk from room to room, checking on patients. Before I became a nun, I went to nursing school. I was good at it. Sometimes I can spot things that even the doctors miss. Dr. Roberts pats me on the head when this happens, like I'm a clever dog. "Good catch, sister," he says, but never looks me in the eye. At night, I return to my small room at the convent. It has just enough space for a narrow bed, a wooden chair, and a small desk where I keep my Bible and the photo of Michael. He was my boyfriend in high school before the cancer took him. His smile in the picture is frozen in time, just like my heart has been since he died. Mother Superior worries about me. "You spend too much time at the hospital," she tells me over our plain breakfast of oatmeal and apples. "God called you to a balanced life of prayer and service." But the quiet of the convent makes my thoughts too loud. At the hospital, with my hands busy changing bandages or giving medicine, I can forget the empty feeling inside me. Today marks 10 years since I took my final vows. 10 years of the same prayers, same halls, same faces. My friend Sister Margaret baked a special treat, one small cookie that I ate in tiny bites to make it last longer. "Are you happy, Teresa?" she asked me while we washed dishes after dinner. The question caught me off guard. Nuns aren't supposed to think about being happy. We're supposed to think about serving God. But her kind eyes made me tell the truth. "I'm at peace," I said, which wasn't the same thing. Later, I sat by my window, watching the city lights blink in the distance. Somewhere out there, people were falling in love, having adventures, making mistakes. My life was safe and planned. No surprises. I touched the small cross hanging from my neck. "This is the path I chose," I whispered to myself. But a small voice inside asked if I had chosen it, or if I had just been running away from pain. Tomorrow would be the same as today. I would wake up, pray, go to the hospital, help people, come back, pray more, and sleep. My life stretched before me like a straight, flat road with no turns or hills. I had no idea that in just 24 hours everything would change, that a man named Salvatore Moretti would be rushed through our emergency doors, and my ordinary world would crack open like an egg. The night that changed everything started with a storm. Rain hit the hospital windows like someone throwing handfuls of tiny pebbles. I was working the night shift, which I often did because I didn't mind the quiet hours when most people were asleep. I had just finished checking on Mrs. Perez, who was getting better after her operation, when I heard the emergency doors slam open. 3 big men rushed in, carrying a 4th man who wasn't moving. They were all wearing nice suits, even though it was raining, but their clothes were wet and their faces looked scared. The man they carried was older, maybe as old as my father would be now. His skin was a scary gray color, like the sky before a bad storm. "Help him!" shouted the tallest man. His voice was deep but shaky. "Please, help him now." Dr. Mason ran over with 2 nurses. They put the sick man on a stretcher and rolled him into the emergency room. I followed behind, my heart beating fast. Something felt wrong about this, but I couldn't say what. "What happened to him?" Dr. Mason asked while checking the man's pulse. "He was fine at dinner," said one of the men in suits. Then he said his chest hurt, and he fell down. We thought it was his heart. Dr. Mason nodded. Probably a heart attack. We'll take care of him. The doctors and nurses moved fast, hooking the man up to machines, putting a mask on his face to help him breathe, and taking his blood for tests. I stood back, watching. The sick man's friends, or maybe they worked for him, I couldn't tell, waited in the hallway, talking in low voices. I moved closer to look at the man. His name, according to his wallet, was Salvatore Moretti. He was 62 years old. His face was lined with wrinkles, and his silver hair was combed back neatly even though he was sick. His hands had gold rings on 3 fingers. While the doctor was busy looking at the heart monitor, I noticed something strange. Mr. Moretti's breathing wasn't like someone having a heart attack, and the color of his skin wasn't quite right either. I had seen one case like this in nursing school, in a book about poisons. I touched Dr. Mason's arm. Doctor, could it be something else? Maybe poisoning? He barely looked at me. Sister Theresa, we have this under control. Please check on the other patients. I nodded and walked away, but something kept bothering me. If Mr. Moretti was poisoned, giving him the wrong medicine could make things worse. I decided to look more closely when the doctor left to check his test results. When the room was empty except for Mr. Moretti and me, I examined him carefully. Behind his right ear was a small purple spot, like a bruise, but different. I had seen a picture of this exact mark in my textbook from nursing school. It was a sign of thallium poisoning, a rare and deadly poison. My hands shook as I wrote down what I saw in his chart. Should I tell Dr. Mason? He had already ignored me once, but if I was right, Mr. Moretti could die without the right treatment. I took a deep breath and went to find Dr. Mason at the nurse's station. Doctor, I really think you should test Mr. Moretti for thallium poisoning. He has a purple mark behind his ear, and his symptoms match what I studied in school. Dr. Mason frowned at me. Sister, with all due respect, I've been a doctor for 20 years. He's having heart problems. Just then, a nurse ran up to us. Doctor, Mr. Moretti's kidneys are failing. Dr. Mason's face changed. He looked at me differently now. Kidney failure isn't typical for a heart attack. He paused. What was that poison you mentioned? Thallium, I said. We need to test for it right away and start the treatment before it's too late. Everything moved quickly after that. They did the test, and I was right. It was thallium poisoning. The doctors started the treatment that would save Mr. Moretti's life. I sat by his bed all night, checking his vital signs and praying for him. By morning, he was stable. When I went to check on him again, one of the men in suits was in the room. He was shorter than the others but seemed to be in charge. He watched me adjust Mr. Moretti's IV. You're the nun who figured it out, aren't you? He asked. I nodded, not sure what to say. He came closer and lowered his voice. Do you know who this man is, sister? I shook my head. This is Salvatore Moretti. He runs the biggest family business in Chicago. The way he said family business made it clear he didn't mean a regular company. Someone tried to kill him last night and you saved him. He won't forget that. My mouth went dry. The Moretti family. Even at the convent, we had heard stories about them. They were dangerous people who did illegal things. I had just saved the life of a Mafia boss. I was just doing my job, I whispered. The man smiled. Mr. Moretti rewards people who help him. You'll see. Later that day, they moved Mr. Moretti to a private hospital with better security. As they wheeled him out, his eyes opened briefly and found mine. They were dark brown, almost black, and even sick as he was, I felt a strange power in his gaze. He reached out and grabbed my hand weakly. Thank you, he said, his voice rough from the breathing tube they had removed. I won't forget this. A shiver ran down my spine. I didn't know if it was fear or something else. All I knew was that somehow, I had gotten mixed up with a dangerous man, and my quiet life would never be the same. 3 days later, flowers arrived at the convent, roses so red they looked like they were made of velvet, arranged in a vase that must have cost more than a month of hospital supplies. The card simply said, "Gratitude, SM." Mother Superior raised her eyebrows when she saw them. Who would send such expensive flowers to a nun? I didn't answer. I couldn't stop thinking about Salvatore Moretti's eyes and the way he had held my hand. I had a feeling I would see him again, and the thought both scared me and made my heart beat faster. I had no idea then that this was just the beginning, that saving his life would change mine forever. A week after the flowers came, a much bigger surprise arrived at St. Mary's Hospital. I was changing the bandage on a little boy's arm when Sister Margaret rushed in, her face flushed. "Sister Theresa," she said, trying to catch her breath. "Mother Superior wants to see you right away. Something about a donation." I followed her to the hospital director's office. Inside, Mother Superior sat next to Dr. Mason and a man in an expensive suit I'd never seen before. They all looked up when I entered. "Ah, Sister Theresa," said Dr. Mason, smiling wider than I'd ever seen. "This gentleman has some news you'll want to hear." The man in the suit stood up. "Sister, my name is James Wilson. I represent the Moretti Family Foundation." He handed me an envelope. "Mr. Salvatore Moretti has made a donation to St. Mary's Hospital in your name, $2 million to build a new children's wing." My mouth fell open. $2 million! That was more money than I could imagine. "Mr. Moretti feels you saved his life," Mr. Wilson continued. "He's a very grateful man." Mother Superior's face was a mix of shock and happiness. A donation that big could help so many sick children. "There's one more thing," Mr. Wilson said. "Mr. Moretti would like to invite Sister Theresa to his home for tea tomorrow, to thank her personally." The room went quiet. Mother Superior frowned. "That's not possible. Sister Theresa's duties are here, and at the convent." Mr. and Wilson's smile didn't change. "Mr. Moretti thought you might say that." He pulled out another envelope. "He's also donating $50,000 to your convent for roof repairs. I believe you mentioned to his assistant that your building needed work?" Mother Superior's cheeks turned pink. "We did need a new roof badly. Water dripped into buckets in 3 rooms every time it rained." She looked at me, then back at Mr. Wilson. "1 hour. Sister Theresa may visit for 1 hour, accompanied by Sister Margaret." Mr. Wilson shook his head gently. "Mr. Moretti's health is still fragile. He can only see Sister Theresa. His doctor has advised against too many visitors." That night at the convent, Sister Margaret helped me get ready. I had never been to a rich person's house before. "Be careful," she whispered as she fixed my veil. "The Moretti family is dangerous. Everyone knows they do bad things." "I'm just having tea with a sick man," I said, but my stomach felt jumpy, like I'd swallowed a bunch of butterflies. The next day, a big black car with dark windows picked me up. The driver didn't talk much, just opened my door, and then drove through the city. After 30 minutes, we turned onto a road with tall trees on both sides. At the end was the biggest house I had ever seen. It was made of light brown stone, with huge windows and towers like a castle in a storybook. The front yard had perfectly cut grass and bushes shaped like animals. Men in suits stood near the gates and doors, watching us as we drove up. I noticed bumps under their jackets that must be guns. The driver opened my door and led me inside. The floor in the entry hall was shiny marble with a design made of different colored stones. A giant chandelier hung from the ceiling, with hundreds of crystal pieces that caught the light and broke it into tiny rainbows. I felt small and out of place, my simple black habit and sensible shoes a stark contrast to all this fancy stuff. A woman in a black dress appeared. "Sister Theresa, Mr. Moretti is waiting for you in the library. Please follow me." We walked through hallways with paintings in gold frames and past rooms bigger than our whole convent chapel. Finally, we reached 2 wooden doors carved with birds and flowers. The woman knocked softly, then opened them. The library was warm and cozy despite its size. Bookshelves covered the walls from floor to ceiling, filled with leather-bound books. A fire crackled in a fireplace big enough to stand in. In front of it, in a chair with soft red cushions, sat Salvatore Moretti. He looked different from the dying man I'd seen in the hospital. His face had color now, and his dark eyes were alert and watching me. He wore a dark blue robe over pajamas and fancy leather slippers. When he saw me, he tried to stand up. "Please don't get up," I said quickly, moving toward him. "Sister Theresa." His voice was deep and raspy. "Finally, we meet when I'm awake." He waved to a chair across from his. "Please sit. Would you like tea? Or coffee, perhaps?" "Tea would be nice," I said, sitting down carefully. My heart was beating fast, and I wasn't sure why. A man appeared with a silver tray holding a teapot, cups, and little cakes. He poured tea for both of us, then left silently. "I want to thank you," Mr. Moretti said, looking at me over his teacup. "The doctors tell me I would have died if you hadn't figured out I was poisoned." I stared at my tea, embarrassed by his praise. I was just doing my job. "No, the other doctors missed it. You saw what they couldn't." He put down his cup. "I don't usually believe in fate, Sister Theresa, but I think God put you in that emergency room for a reason." I didn't know what to say to that. Did God really mean for me to save a man who, according to Sister Margaret and others, did such bad things? "The children's wing is very generous," I said finally. "Thank you." He waved his hand like $2 million was nothing. "A small token. But I have another favor to ask of you." I looked up, suddenly nervous. "I need a private nurse while I recover. Someone I can trust." He leaned forward. "Someone tried to kill me, sister. I need to be careful about who I let close to me. But I have my duties at the hospital and the convent. I've already spoken to your Mother Superior and the hospital director. They've agreed to let you work here for 1 month. I've made it worth their while, financially." My mouth fell open. They agreed to this without asking me? Mr. Moretti had the good grace to look a little embarrassed. I perhaps should have waited, but time is important in my situation. He reached over and took my hand. His was warm and strong. "Please, Sister Theresa. I don't trust easily, but I trust you. You have nothing to gain by harming me, and you've already saved my life once." I pulled my hand away gently. "Mr. Moretti, I took vows. I can't just live in your house." "I understand. I've had a small suite prepared for you. With a private chapel?" He smiled slightly. "I respect your vows, sister. No one will interfere with your prayers or duties to God, but many people will benefit from your help. The children who will be treated in that new hospital wing. The patients your convent will be able to help with their new roof and facilities." He was making it hard to say no, and part of me, a part I didn't fully understand, didn't want to say no. There was something about this man, something in his dark eyes that pulled at me. 1 month, I said finally. "But I'll need to bring my own things, and I'll need time each day for prayer." He smiled and it changed his whole face, making him look younger and less scary. "Of course, everything will be as you wish." As I sipped my tea, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was crossing a line I could never uncross. I was about to step into Salvatore Moretti's world, a world of danger and secrets that was as far from my convent life as the earth is from the moon. But I had made my choice. For better or worse, my life was now tied to his. My first week at the Moretti mansion felt like living in a dream. My room was bigger than the entire dormitory at the convent, with a soft bed covered in silky sheets, and a bathroom with a tub so big I could almost swim in it. The small chapel Mr. Moretti had promised was just down the hall, with real stained glass windows that made colored light dance on the floor when the sun shone through. Every morning I checked Mr. Moretti's vital signs and gave him his medicine. He was getting stronger each day, sitting up longer and even walking short distances with my help. His hand on my arm felt heavy and warm as we slowly moved through the big house, his slippers making soft sounds on the marble floors. "Tell me about yourself, Sister Theresa," he said on our third day, while we rested in the garden. The air smelled sweet from roses and the birds sang in the trees around us. "How does a smart young woman decide to become a nun?" I looked down at my hands, folded neatly in my lap. No one had asked me that in a long time. I lost someone I loved. He died when we were both 18. Mr. Moretti was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry." "Was it an accident?" "Leukemia, blood cancer. We had plans to get married after college." I could still see Michael's face getting thinner and paler as the cancer ate away at him. "After he died, nothing made sense anymore. But at the convent, I found peace." "And did you find happiness too?" His dark eyes watched me carefully. I didn't know how to answer that. Was I happy? I'd never really thought about it that way. "I found purpose," I said finally, "helping others, serving God." He nodded, but something in his face told me he didn't quite believe me. "Purpose is good. But life should have joy too, don't you think?" Before I could answer, his bodyguard Marco appeared on the path. "Boss, Antonio is here to see you." Mr. Moretti's face changed instantly, becoming harder. "Tell him I'll see him in my study in 10 minutes. He turned to me. "I'm afraid our walk is over for today, sister. Business calls." That was how it often went. We would be talking, getting to know each other, and then suddenly his other life would intrude. Men in suits came and went. Phone calls made him step away, his voice dropping to a whisper. Doors closed as I approached. I knew he was trying to keep me separate from whatever his family business really was. But as the days passed, I began to see different sides of Salvatore Moretti. He wasn't just the scary boss who made men nervous. He was also a man who loved poetry and could recite long passages by heart. He spoke Italian to me sometimes, teaching me words and laughing gently at my bad pronunciation. He told me stories about growing up poor in Italy, coming to America as a boy of 12 with nothing but the clothes he wore. "My father worked 18 hours a day in a factory," he said one afternoon, while I changed the bandage on his arm where they had put the IV in the hospital. His hands were always cut and burned. He died at 50, worn out like an old shoe. I promised myself I would never live that way. I could hear in his voice both love for his father and fear of sharing his fate. It made me understand a little why he might have chosen a life outside the law, though I still couldn't approve of it. One morning, I bumped into a small, older woman in the kitchen. She was mixing dough in a big bowl, flour on her hands and cheeks. "You must be the nun," she said with a thick Italian accent. "I'm Rosa, the cook. You're good for him, you know. He smiles more now." I felt my cheeks get hot. "I'm just his nurse." Rosa laughed, a warm sound that filled the kitchen. Of course, just his nurse." She winked at me. "Try these." She handed me a warm cookie that melted in my mouth, sweet and buttery. "Mr. Moretti has been alone too long," she continued, rolling out the dough. "Since Maria died, he closed his heart." "Maria?" I asked before I could stop myself. "His wife. Cancer took her 5 years ago. A good woman." Rosa crossed herself. "He loved her very much." I thought about this later as I watched Mr. Moretti, Salvatore, as he'd asked me to call him, reading by the fireplace. The light from the flames made shadows dance across his face. I could see the sadness in him now that Rosa had pointed it out. He had lost someone too. "What are you reading?" I asked, sitting in the chair across from his. He held up the book. Dante's Inferno. "Do you know it?" I shook my head. My education had been limited to nursing school and religious texts. "It's about a journey through hell," he said, "but also about love and redemption." He looked at me over the top of his reading glasses. "Would you like me to read some to you?" I nodded, and he began to read in Italian, his voice rich and deep. I couldn't understand the words, but the beauty of the sound wrapped around me like warm water. When he translated into English, the words painted pictures in my mind of a man lost in a dark forest, searching for his way back to light and love. As Salvatore read, I studied his face, the lines around his eyes that crinkled when he smiled, the small scar on his chin, the way his hair, more silver than black now, curled at his neck. He wasn't handsome like the men in movies, but there was something about him that drew me in. A strength, a sadness, a loneliness that matched my own. When he finished reading, we sat in silence for a while, just listening to the fire crackle. It felt comfortable, like we'd known each other much longer than 2 weeks. The quiet was broken by a young man bursting into the room without knocking. He looked like a younger version of Salvatore, with the same dark eyes but a harder face. "Dad, we need to talk. The Colombians are—" He stopped when he saw me, his face turning angry. "What's she doing here?" Salvatore closed his book calmly. "Anthony, this is Sister Theresa, my nurse." He turned to me. "My son, Anthony." Anthony didn't look at me. "We have business to discuss, private business." "Of course," I said, standing up. "I'll check on you later, Mr. Moretti." As I left, I heard Anthony's angry whisper. "A nun? Are you crazy? Bringing her into our house?" That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Salvatore reading poetry, the way his eyes had looked in the firelight. I was feeling things I hadn't felt since Michael, things a nun should not feel. And it scared me. The next morning, I was in the kitchen getting Salvatore's medicine ready when I overheard Marco talking to one of the other guards in the hallway. "The boss is different with her around. Softer." "Too soft," said the other man. "Anthony thinks he's losing his edge," said the old man's getting sweet on the nun. I dropped the glass I was holding and it shattered on the floor. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Was I imagining things, or was Salvatore feeling the same strange pull I was? Later that day, while helping him walk in the garden, Salvatore stopped by a bench and sat down. He patted the space next to him. "Sister Theresa, Theresa," he corrected himself. "I've been thinking, when your month here is over, would you consider staying longer? Not as a nurse. I'm almost fully recovered. But perhaps as a friend of the family?" His eyes held mine, and I saw in them a hope and fear that matched the feelings in my own heart. I knew I was standing on the edge of something dangerous, something that could change everything. My vows, my life, my soul. "I don't know," I whispered. And truly, I didn't. All I knew was that every day the convent felt further away, and this strange new world, Salvatore's world, felt more and more like where I belonged. I didn't answer Salvatore's question that day in the garden. Instead, I smiled and suggested we continue our walk. But his words stayed with me, bouncing around in my head like a rubber ball. Stay longer. Not as a nurse, as a friend. The way he said friend made me think he meant something more, and that both thrilled and terrified me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of loud voices. I put on my robe over my nightgown and peeked out my door. Anthony was in the hallway outside Salvatore's room, arguing with Marco. Their angry words echoed off the marble floors and high ceilings. "This isn't up for discussion," Anthony shouted. "My father is making mistakes. First bringing that nun here, now backing out of the deal with the Russos. He's going to get us all killed." Marco's voice was quieter, but firm. "Your father is the boss, Anthony, not you." "Maybe it's time for that to change," Anthony hissed, then stormed off, his footsteps pounding down the hall. I closed my door quietly, my heart racing. Anthony's words scared me. They sounded like a threat against his own father. Later that day, a sleek black car pulled up to the mansion. A man in a dark suit got out, but this wasn't one of Salvatore's men. This man was thin, with cold eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Marco met him at the door and led him to Salvatore's study. I was arranging flowers in a vase nearby, roses from the garden that smelled sweet and spicy at the same time. Their red color reminded me of blood, and I shivered despite the warm day. The study door was closed, but I could hear raised voices inside. I shouldn't listen, I told myself. It wasn't my place. But I moved closer anyway, the cool wood of the door pressed against my ear. "The police commissioner can't protect you forever, Moretti," the thin man was saying. "We've been building a case for 2 years. We have witnesses." "Witnesses can change their minds, Detective Russo," Salvatore replied, his voice calm. "People often remember things differently when they have time to think." "Is that a threat?" The detective's voice got louder. "Just an observation. Now, unless you have a warrant, I think our conversation is over." The door opened suddenly, and I jumped back, nearly knocking over my vase of flowers. The detective, Russo, stared at me, his eyes taking in my habit. Well, he said with a cold smile. "The rumors are true. Salvatore Moretti has his own personal nun." Salvatore appeared behind him, his face dark with anger. "Detective, you're leaving." Russo kept his eyes on me. "Sister, do you know what kind of man you're working for? The things he's done? The people he's hurt?" "That's enough," Salvatore growled. "Marco, show the detective out." But Russo wasn't finished. He pulled a card from his pocket and held it out to me. "When you're ready to talk about what you've seen in this house, call me, before you find yourself in too deep." I didn't take the card. Marco grabbed Russo's arm and led him away, but the detective looked back at me over his shoulder, his eyes full of judgment. When he was gone, Salvatore turned to me, his face softer now. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Who was he?" I asked, though I already knew. "A police detective who thinks I'm the devil." He sighed. Maybe he's right. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to defend Salvatore, to say he wasn't the monster Detective Russo thought he was. But another part whispered that I didn't really know what Salvatore had done in his life, the bad things he might be guilty of. That night, as I said my prayers in the small chapel, the door opened and Anthony walked in. He didn't kneel or make the sign of the cross. He just stood there, watching me with eyes so much like his father's but lacking the warmth. "My father thinks he can change," Anthony said. "He thinks you can save his soul." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Do you know how many people he's ordered killed? How many lives he's ruined with drugs and gambling?" I stayed silent, my rosary beads cool against my fingers. "You should go back to your convent, sister," Anthony continued, "before you get hurt. My father's enemies are watching this house. They see him getting soft. They're getting ready to move against us." He came closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And so am I." Fear tightened my chest. Was Anthony planning to hurt his father? Should I tell Salvatore? Before I could decide, Anthony walked out, leaving me alone with my troubled thoughts. The next morning, Mother Superior called me on the phone Salvatore had put in my room. Her voice was tight with worry. "Sister Theresa, there are rumors about you and Mr. Moretti. People are talking." My cheeks grew hot. What kind of rumors? The kind that are bad for a nun and bad for our convent. She sighed heavily. The bishop has heard them too. He's concerned about your soul, and about how your friendship with this man looks to others. I'm just his nurse, I said, but the words felt hollow even to me. Your month is almost up, Sister Theresa. The bishop feels, and I agree, that you should return to the convent immediately. Today. My heart sank like a stone in water. Leave today? Leave Salvatore? The thought hurt more than I wanted to admit. I'll need to tell Mr. Moretti, make sure he has another nurse. Sister Theresa. Mother Superior's voice was firm. This is not a request, it's an order. You took a vow of obedience. Or have you forgotten that? After I hung up, I sat on my bed, tears running down my face. I hadn't cried since Michael died. What was happening to me? I was a bride of Christ, dedicated to God. How had I let myself care so much for a man like Salvatore Moretti? A soft knock at my door made me wipe my eyes quickly. It was Rosa, the cook, with a tray of tea and cookies. The boss said you might need this, she said, putting the tray on my table. Then she looked at my red eyes and tear-stained face. Oh, little one, your heart is troubled, yes? I nodded, unable to speak. Rosa sat next to me, her plump hand patting mine. Love is never easy, especially when it comes in a package we don't expect. I'm a nun, I whispered. I shouldn't feel this way. Being a nun doesn't stop you from being human, Rosa said gently. God gave us hearts to love. Why would he be angry when we use his gift? After Rosa left, I packed my small bag slowly. I had to leave. I had vows to keep, duties to fulfill. Whatever I felt for Salvatore, it couldn't matter. My life belonged to God. When I went to tell Salvatore I was leaving, I found him in his study with Marco. Maps and papers were spread out on his desk. Both men looked up when I entered, and Salvatore's face brightened, then fell when he saw my packed bag. You're leaving, he said. It wasn't a question. Mother Superior called. The bishop has ordered me to return to the convent. Marco excused himself, closing the door behind him. Salvatore and I were alone. Because of the rumors? He asked. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Salvatore came around the desk and stood in front of me, so close I could smell his cologne, like cedar trees and lemons. And is that what you want? To go back? I looked up at him, at the lines on his face that showed his age and his troubles. At his dark eyes that somehow saw through all my walls to the woman behind the habit, the woman I had been trying to hide, even from myself. What I want doesn't matter, I said at last. I made vows. Salvatore took my hand. His was warm and strong, marked with age spots and small scars. A hand that had seen hard work and harder choices. Vows made when you were running from grief, he said softly. Is that really what God wants for you? A life half lived? I pulled my hand away, my heart beating too fast. I have to go. As I turned to leave, he said my name, not Sister Theresa, just Theresa, the way Michael used to say it. And something in me broke and mended all at once. I'll come back tomorrow, I said, not turning around, to check on you, as your nurse. And after that? He asked. I don't know. It was the most honest answer I could give. The convent felt smaller than I remembered. My room, once a peaceful haven, now seemed like a cage with its narrow bed and bare walls. The single window looked out on the brick wall of the building next door, not the sweeping gardens and trees I had grown used to at Salvatore's home. The sounds were different too. No birds singing, just the tick of the old clock in the hallway and the soft murmurs of prayers. Sister Margaret hugged me when I returned, her bony arms wrapping around me tightly. Thank God you're back safe, she whispered. We were so worried. I tried to smile. I was just doing my job, helping a sick man. She looked at me with knowing eyes. Was that all it was, Theresa? I couldn't answer. How could I explain feelings I didn't fully understand myself? Mother Superior was less welcoming. She called me to her office, where she sat behind her desk with her hands folded like two pale spiders. The bishop is concerned, Sister Theresa. Your association with the Moretti family has created talk. I was helping a sick man, I repeated, staring at the crucifix on the wall behind her. Jesus looked down at me with sad eyes, as if he knew I wasn't telling the whole truth. A man with blood on his hands, Mother Superior said, a criminal, a killer. You didn't mind his money, I said, before I could stop myself. The words came out sharp as knives. Mother Superior's face turned red, then white. That was for the good of the hospital, the church, not for personal gain. She took a deep breath. The bishop feels you should spend time in reflection. You will not return to the hospital yet. Instead, you will help Sister Agnes in the kitchen and attend extra prayer services. I was being punished, like a child sent to her room, but I nodded and said, yes, Mother Superior, because that's what a good nun would do. That's what I had always done. Follow the rules. Obey. Never question. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to Salvatore. His voice reading poetry, his hand holding mine, the look in his eyes when I left. I had promised to go back to check on him tomorrow, but would Mother Superior even let me leave the convent? The next morning, I found Mother Superior after breakfast. Mr. Moretti still needs medical care, I said. I should check on him today. I promised. She looked at me for a long moment. 1 hour. No more. And this will be the last time. The same black car was waiting for me outside the convent gates, as if Salvatore had known I would come. The driver smiled when he saw me, opening the door. The boss will be happy to see you, sister. When we arrived at the mansion, Marco met me at the door. His face was tight with worry. The boss isn't doing well today. His breathing is bad. I hurried to Salvatore's room, my heart pounding. He was in bed, propped up on pillows, his face gray with pain. An oxygen tank stood by the bed, and a thin tube ran to his nose. Theresa, he said when he saw me, his voice weak. You came back. I went to him, taking his wrist to check his pulse. It was too fast. What happened? You were doing much better. Just a setback, he said, trying to smile. Nothing to worry about. But I was worried. His color was wrong, his breathing labored. I listened to his chest with my stethoscope. His lungs sounded congested. Have you been taking your medicine? He looked away. I might have missed a dose or two. I checked his pill bottles on the bedside table, counting quickly. Salvatore, there are too many pills here. You've missed several doses. I looked closer at the bottles. And this one, your heart medication, the pills don't look right. The pills were slightly different colors, some a paler shade of pink than others. I checked the date on the bottle. It had been refilled yesterday. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Who brought your medicine yesterday? Salvatore sighed. Anthony picked it up from the pharmacy. The same Anthony who had threatened his father, who thought Salvatore was growing weak, who wanted to take over. I felt sick. I need to run tests on these pills, I said, and you need to go back to the hospital. Salvatore shook his head. No hospitals. Too dangerous. I have enemies who would love to find me helpless in a hospital bed. Then let me call a doctor to come here, I pleaded. No strangers in the house, he said firmly, then started coughing. The sound was wet and painful. When he pulled his handkerchief away from his mouth, I saw spots of blood. Fear squeezed my heart. Without the right medicine, Salvatore could die, and I was sure now that someone, maybe his own son, was trying to kill him slowly by tampering with his medication. I sat on the edge of his bed taking his hand. Salvatore, listen to me. I think someone has been changing your pills, making you sicker instead of better. His dark eyes met mine. Anthony, he said softly. It wasn't a question. I nodded. I think so, but I can help you. Let me stay here, watch over your medicine, make sure you get the right pills. He squeezed my hand. But your convent, your vows. My vow is to help those who are sick, I said. That's what I'm doing. But we both knew it was more than that. I called Mother Superior and told her Mr. Moretti had taken a turn for the worse, that I needed to stay overnight to monitor him. She wasn't happy, but she agreed to one night. One night turned into 2, then 3. Salvatore began to improve once I took charge of his medicine, getting the pills directly from a different pharmacy and watching him take each dose. Color came back to his face. His breathing got better. We spent hours talking. He told me more about his wife, Maria, how they had met when they were teenagers, how she had stood by him through the hard years when he was building his business. He didn't talk about what that business really was, and I didn't ask. Part of me didn't want to know. I told him about Michael, about the dreams we had shared, the future we had planned before cancer stole it all away. How empty I had felt after he died. How the convent had seemed like a safe place to hide from more pain. But is hiding really living? Salvatore asked softly one evening as we sat by the fire. Outside, rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. Is that what God wants for you? I don't know anymore, I admitted. I thought I did. I thought I knew exactly what God wanted. But now... Now? Salvatore prompted, his eyes warm in the firelight. Now everything I believed is being questioned, I whispered. Everything I thought I was. He reached out and touched my cheek. His fingers were gentle, but they burned like fire against my skin. Perhaps that's not a bad thing. Perhaps God is showing you a different path. I pulled away, standing up quickly. I should check your temperature and your blood pressure. Salvatore let me change the subject, but the question lingered between us, unspoken but growing louder each day. What did God want for me? What did I want for myself? On the 4th day, Marco knocked on the door while I was changing Salvatore's bandages. Boss, there's a phone call from the bishop. My stomach dropped. The bishop himself was calling? That couldn't be good. Take it in my study, Salvatore said to Marco, then turned to me. It seems your church leaders are concerned. Half an hour later, Salvatore came back to his room. His face was serious. The bishop wants you to return to the convent immediately. He says if you don't, you'll face serious consequences, possibly being released from your vows. The words hit me like a physical blow. Released from my vows. No longer a nun. No longer Sister Theresa. Just Theresa. The thought was both terrifying and something else. Something I didn't want to name. What did you tell him? I asked, my voice barely audible. I told him I would convey his message to you, and that the choice was yours. Salvatore took my hands in his. And it is your choice, Theresa. Not mine, not the bishop's, not Mother Superior's. Yours. I stared at our joined hands, his large and tanned, marked by age and experience, mine smaller and paler, the hands of someone who had hidden from life. I don't know what to do, I whispered, tears filling my eyes. Everything is changing so fast. I'm changing. Salvatore lifted my chin with one finger, making me look at him. Change isn't always bad. It's scary, I said. Yes, he agreed. But so is standing still when your heart is telling you to move. I pulled my hands away and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The beauty of it took my breath away. When was the last time I had really noticed a sunset? Really felt the wonder of it? I need time, I said finally. Time to think. To pray. Of course, Salvatore said. Take all the time you need. But know this, Theresa, whatever you decide, however this ends, meeting you has changed me too. For the better, I think. That night, alone in my room at the mansion, I knelt to pray. But instead of the familiar comfort of my rosary beads and memorized prayers, I found myself simply talking to God, asking questions I had never dared to ask before. Was I hiding in the convent or serving there? Was the pull I felt toward Salvatore a temptation to lead me astray? Or was it God showing me another way to live, to serve, to love? I didn't get clear answers, only more questions. But as dawn broke, one thing became clear. I couldn't keep living between two worlds. I had to choose. I woke up to the sound of raised voices. The clock on my bedside table showed 5:30 a.m., too early for visitors. Pulling on my robe, I opened my door a crack and listened. The voices were coming from downstairs, angry, urgent. I recognized Salvatore's deep rumble and Marco's steady tone, but there was a third voice I couldn't place. Slipping into the hallway, I made my way to the grand staircase. From there, I could see into the entrance hall below. Salvatore stood with Marco and another man, older, with white hair and a worried face. All three looked up when I appeared at the top of the stairs. "Theresa," Salvatore said, his voice tight. "Go back to your room, please." But something in his face, a mixture of fear and anger I'd never seen before, made me come down the stairs instead. "What's wrong?" The white-haired man looked at me with surprise. "This is the nun?" Salvatore nodded. "Father Dominic, this is Sister Theresa." "Theresa, Father Dominic is an old friend." A priest. Here, in Salvatore's home. The surprise must have shown on my face. "Even sinners need spiritual guidance," Father Dominic said with a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What's happened?" I asked again, looking from face to face. Salvatore sighed. "Anthony has made his move. There was a meeting last night with the other families. He told them I've become weak, that I'm losing control, that my friendship with you is clouding my judgment." My stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" "It means," Marco said grimly, "that half our people have switched sides. They're backing Anthony now." "And the other half?" I asked. "Are waiting to see who wins," Salvatore said. Father Dominic stepped forward. "Salvatore, you need to leave town for a while. Let things cool down. I can arrange a place for you to stay." But Salvatore shook his head. "I'm not running from my own son." His eyes found mine. "But Theresa should go. Back to the convent. It's not safe for her here anymore." The thought of leaving made my chest hurt. "I'm staying," I said firmly. "You're still my patient." Father Dominic looked at me curiously. "Your devotion to your patient is admirable, sister. But Salvatore is right. This situation could turn dangerous quickly." Before I could argue further, the phone rang. Marco answered it, listened for a moment, then held it out to Salvatore. "It's Anthony." Salvatore took the phone, his face hardening into a mask. "Anthony." He listened, his knuckles turning white around the receiver. "I see. And when did you decide to betray your own father?" Another pause. "No, I won't step down. This ends today. My house. Noon." He hung up without saying goodbye. "Boss," Marco said, "it could be a trap." "Of course it's a trap," Salvatore replied. "But it's also a chance to end this. On my terms. In my house." He turned to me. "Theresa, Father Dominic will take you back to the convent now." "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm not leaving." Salvatore's eyes flashed with anger. "This isn't a debate. Anthony is coming here with his people. There could be violence." All the more reason I should stay. If someone gets hurt, they'll need a nurse. Father Dominic put his hand on my arm. Sister, I understand your concern, but this is family business. Dangerous business. I looked at his hand until he removed it. Then I turned to Salvatore. You asked me yesterday to make a choice. My choice is to stay. For a long moment, Salvatore just looked at me. Then he nodded once. Marco, take Father Dominic home, then call our people. Everyone who's still loyal. I want them here by 11. After they left, Salvatore and I stood alone in the big entrance hall. Sunlight was just starting to stream through the windows, making patterns on the marble floor. You shouldn't stay, Salvatore said softly. This could get ugly. I know, I replied, but I'm done running away from hard things. I took a deep breath. Last night I did a lot of thinking about my vows, about why I became a nun in the first place. And what did you decide? He asked. That I became a nun because I was afraid. Afraid of loving and losing again, like I lost Michael. The convent was safe, but safety isn't the same as happiness. I stepped closer to him. Salvatore, I care about you. More than I should. More than my vows allow. His eyes softened. Theresa, let me finish. I don't know what's going to happen today with Anthony, but whatever happens, I want you to know that you helped me find myself again. The real me, not just Sister Theresa. Salvatore took my hand and pressed it to his chest. I could feel his heart beating, strong and steady. When I was dying in that hospital, and I opened my eyes and saw you standing there in your habit, I thought you were an angel. But you're more than that. You're a woman with courage and kindness and fire in her soul. He smiled. A woman worth changing for. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Men arrived in groups of 2 and 3, Salvatore's loyal soldiers. They brought guns, which made me nervous, but Salvatore assured me they were just for protection. The house was prepared. Furniture moved. Positions taken. At 11:30, Salvatore called me to his study. He had changed into a suit, dark blue with a red tie. He looked powerful and in control. Theresa, I want you to stay in the kitchen with Rosa during the meeting. If things go badly, there's a door there that leads to the garage. Take the keys to the silver car and leave. I started to protest, but he held up his hand. Please, just this once. Do as I ask. Not because I'm ordering you, but because I'm asking you. Because I can't bear the thought of you getting hurt. The look in his eyes made my arguments die in my throat. I nodded. Okay, but promise me you'll be careful. I promise, he said, then did something that surprised me. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, his lips warm against my skin. For luck, he whispered. At noon exactly, cars began arriving. Through the kitchen window, I watched Anthony get out of the first one, followed by 6 men. More cars pulled up behind them. Rosa crossed herself and muttered a prayer in Italian. We could hear voices from the entrance hall, then footsteps as the group moved to the dining room where Salvatore waited. Minutes passed in tense silence. Rosa kneaded bread dough with shaking hands. I paced back and forth, jumping at every sound. Then we heard it, shouting, a crash, what might have been a gunshot. Rosa grabbed my arm. We should go, now. But I couldn't leave, not without knowing if Salvatore was okay. I ran toward the dining room, ignoring Rosa's cries for me to come back. The scene that met my eyes was chaos. Men were fighting, punches being thrown. A chair lay broken on the floor. Anthony stood at one end of the long table, Salvatore at the other. Both held guns. It's over, Dad, Anthony was saying. The old ways are done. We need to expand, to grow. Your time has passed. My time passed? Salvatore's voice was deadly quiet. I built this family from nothing. Where were you then? playing with toys while I bled and suffered to give you a good life. And now you're throwing it all away? Anthony sneered. For what? A nun? He laughed, a cold sound with no joy in it. You're pathetic. Salvatore's hand tightened on his gun. You tried to poison me. Your own father. A flicker of surprise crossed Anthony's face. How did you know? She figured it out, Salvatore said, nodding toward me. Everyone turned to look, noticing me for the first time. The nun you think has made me weak actually saved my life. Again. Anthony's face twisted with anger. He raised his gun, pointing it not at Salvatore but at me. Then maybe I should fix that problem. Everything happened very fast then. Salvatore shouted, "No!" and lunged forward. There was a loud bang, a gunshot. I flinched, waiting for pain, but it was Salvatore who stumbled, a red stain spreading across his chest. Marco and the other men tackled Anthony, wrestling him to the ground. I ran to Salvatore, catching him as he fell. My nurse's training took over. Get me towels! Call an ambulance! Salvatore looked up at me, his dark eyes filled with pain but also with something else. Peace. You see? He whispered. I knew you wouldn't leave. I pressed towels against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Don't talk. Save your strength. He reached up and touched my face, leaving a smear of blood on my cheek. Theresa, if I don't make it, you will, I said fiercely. I won't let you die. Not now. The sound of sirens filled the air. Someone must have called an ambulance. Marco appeared beside me. The police are coming too. Anthony's been arrested. Salvatore nodded weakly. Good. His eyes never left my face. Theresa, I need to tell you something. I leaned closer to hear him over the noise. I'm listening. I love you, he said simply. I think I have since you saved me the first time. Whatever happens next, know that you helped me find my soul again. Tears filled my eyes, blurring my vision. I love you too, I whispered, the words I had been afraid to say even to myself. As the paramedics rushed in, I made my choice. I would not leave his side, not now, not ever. Whatever price I had to pay, my place at the convent, my identity as a nun, Salvatore was worth it. We were worth it. And in that moment of clarity, I felt not the guilt I had expected, but a profound sense of rightness. As if God had led me here, to this man, for a reason. Not to hide from life, but to embrace it fully, with all its mess and pain and beauty. 6 months have passed since the day Salvatore was shot. Spring has arrived, bringing with it new leaves on the trees and flowers in the garden. From the kitchen window of the small house by the lake, I can see Salvatore sitting on the dock, his fishing rod beside him. He doesn't really fish much, just likes to watch the water and feed the ducks that swim by. His hair is fully silver now, shining in the morning sun. The kettle whistles on the stove, and I pour hot water into 2 mugs. The kitchen smells like fresh bread and coffee. It's so different from the sterile hospital where we first met, or the grand mansion where our story nearly ended. This place is simpler, peaceful, ours. The bullet missed Salvatore's heart by less than an inch. The doctors called it a miracle, but I like to think it was something else, a second chance. While he recovered in the hospital, under police guard and my watchful eye, things changed rapidly in the world he had once controlled. Anthony went to jail, facing charges for attempted murder and other crimes the police had been waiting years to pin on someone in the Moretti family. Many of Salvatore's men were arrested too. His empire, built on illegal gambling, protection money, and things I still don't ask about, began to crumble. But not all of it was lost. Marco, always loyal, helped Salvatore transfer ownership of his legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction companies, real estate, to a trust. When Salvatore was strong enough to leave the hospital, There was still enough money for us to start over. Not as rich as before, but comfortable. I carry the tea outside, my feet making soft thuds on the wooden dock. Salvatore turns and smiles when he hears me coming. The scar on his cheek from the shooting has faded to a thin white line. He looks older now, but also lighter somehow, as if a great weight has been lifted from his shoulders. "Good morning," he says, taking the mug from my hands, his fingers brushing mine. Even after all these months, his touch still sends a warm flutter through me. "Did you sleep well?" I sit beside him, close enough that our shoulders touch. "Better than you. I heard you get up in the night." He shrugs. "Old habits? I still check the doors and windows sometimes. Old fears die hard. Though we left Chicago for this quiet place in Michigan, though most of Salvatore's enemies are gone or have forgotten him, caution is part of who he is. Just as faith is part of who I am, even without my habit and veil." The letter from the bishop came 3 weeks after the shooting. My request for dispensation from my vows had been granted. I was no longer Sister Theresa, just Theresa Sullivan again. The letter was formal, cold even, but a note from Mother Superior tucked inside was warmer. "Follow your heart," she had written. "God's plans are bigger than the walls we build to contain them." It wasn't easy, stepping away from the life I had known for 10 years. Some days I still wake up reaching for a rosary that isn't there, or find myself starting prayers at times of day when the convent bells would have rung. But I haven't lost my faith. Just found a new way to live it. "What are you thinking about?" Salvatore asks, noticing my silence. "The past," I admit. "How much has changed?" He nods, looking out over the lake where tiny waves catch the light like scattered diamonds. "Do you ever regret it? Leaving the convent? Choosing this life instead?" It's a question he asks sometimes, as if he still can't quite believe I chose him. "No," I say truthfully. "I miss some things. The sense of purpose, the community. But I was hiding there, not living. And now?" His dark eyes search my face. "Now I'm living," I say, squeezing his hand. "Really living." After breakfast, we drive into town. It's a small place. Just one main street with shops and a diner where the waitress knows us by name. People here think we're just a retired couple who moved north for the quiet life. They don't know about Salvatore's past, or mine. Here, we're just the Morettis, the nice older couple who donated money to fix the library roof. At the drugstore, I pick up Salvatore's heart medication while he buys a newspaper. The pharmacist, Mrs. Chen, smiles at me over the counter. "How's he doing?" she asks as she hands me the white paper bag. "Better every day," I say. "The walking is good for him." "And good for you too," she says with a wink. "You've got more color in your cheeks than when you first came to town." On our way home, we stop at St. Catherine's, the small church on the edge of town. It's not as grand as the churches in Chicago, but I like its simple beauty. The stained glass windows aren't fancy, but when the sun shines through them, they paint the wooden pews with pools of red and blue and gold. Salvatore waits in the car. He doesn't come inside with me, not yet. Though he believes in God, more than ever since I met you, he tells me, he doesn't feel worthy of entering a church, not after the things he's done. But he drives me here every Sunday, and twice during the week when I come to help with the food pantry. Inside, I light a candle and say a prayer for Michael. I still think of him sometimes, the boy I loved who died too young. But the sharp pain of his loss has softened over time into a gentle sadness. I like to think he would be happy for me now. Father James comes out from the sacristy and smiles when he sees me. "Theresa, I was hoping you'd stop by. Mrs. Collins was asking if you could help with the First Communion classes." I'm surprised. "Me? But I'm not a nun anymore?" He finishes with a kind smile. "That doesn't mean you can't share your faith. The children love your stories. It's a new idea, but one that feels right. A way to keep serving, teaching about God's love without the walls of a convent around me. I'd like that, I say. When I return to the car, Salvatore takes one look at my face and says, "Good news?" "Father James asked me to help teach the children," I tell him. He smiles. "You'll be wonderful at that. You're a natural teacher." On the drive home, we pass the small clinic where I've been volunteering. After being a nurse for so many years, I couldn't just stop helping people. The clinic serves the poor in our area. Migrant workers from the farms, elderly people on fixed incomes, children whose parents can't afford insurance. The work isn't so different from what I did at St. Mary's. But here, I'm not Sister Theresa. I'm Nurse Sullivan, or sometimes just Theresa. And that's enough. At home, we eat lunch on the porch. It's become our favorite spot. Close enough to see the lake through the trees, but sheltered by the roof when it rains. Salvatore takes his pills without my having to remind him now. Small victories. "I got a call from Marco this morning," he says as we clear the dishes. "The last case against the family has been settled. It's really over now." I watch his face, looking for regret or nostalgia, but I see only relief. "Are you glad?" He thinks about it, drying a plate with slow, careful movements. His hands, once so quick and strong, sometimes shake now. "Yes," he says finally. "That life. It gave me power. Money. But it was never peaceful. I was always waiting for someone to come after me, to try to take what I had." He puts down the dish and takes my hands in his. "What I have now is worth more." In the evening, we sit by the fireplace, though it's not cold enough for a fire. Salvatore reads while I knit, a new skill I'm learning from Mrs. Peterson next door. I'm making a blanket for the baby of one of the young mothers at the clinic. It's full of mistakes, but I keep going, one stitch at a time, learning as I go. "Rosa called," Salvatore says, looking up from his book. "She wants to visit next month. Says she misses cooking for us." I smile, remembering the kind cook who saw the truth of my feelings before I did. "Tell her yes. We'd love to have her." As darkness falls outside our windows, I think about how far we've come. From a dying mafia boss and a nun who had closed her heart, to two people learning to live new lives. Neither of us is perfect. Salvatore still has nightmares about his past. I still struggle sometimes with leaving behind the structure and certainty of my old life. But together, we've found something neither of us had before. Not just love, but peace. A quiet life filled with small joys instead of grand mansions or holy devotions. Morning coffee on the dock. Helping at the church food pantry. Watching the sunset paint the lake in colors no artist could match. "What are you thinking now?" Salvatore asks, catching me staring out the window. "That sometimes the best medicine isn't what doctors prescribe," I say. "Sometimes it's finding where you truly belong." He puts down his book and moves to sit beside me on the couch, his arm warm around my shoulders. "And have you? Found where you belong?" I lean into him, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong against mine. The heart no doctor could save, until a nun spotted what they'd missed. Not just the poison that was killing him, but the loneliness too. "Yes," I whisper. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be."